Morning all, nice to see you. My name is Vicky Osmond and I work across the Trust helping students to prepare for competitive entry courses, but also apprenticeships where needed. I'm going to talk to you this morning about admissions tests. It is the kind of time of year where we might be considering admissions tests, definitely if you're applying for medicine or dentistry. For some students who are applying for veterinary med, you might need an admissions test. And if you're applying for medicine or dentistry, you need to have made sure you have registered with for our lessons on the UCAT, which are coming up in June and July. There are 6 lessons that we run across our trust of schools: King Ed Stourbridge, Worcester Sixth Form College, Hereford Sixth Form College, and John Curle High. We run 6 evening lessons to prepare you for the UCAT. So if you're a medic or a dentist, you should have registered for those. Now, it's really important. If you apply for Oxford or Cambridge, you might well have admissions tests, but there are quite a few universities that set admissions tests. And these are for almost all of the top universities for law. You will have an admissions test. And for example, if you are doing engineering at lots of universities, maths, computer science, economics. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about what you might need to do to prepare for your admissions tests. First of all, admissions tests are sat, you sit them at a Pearson VUE test centre, the same place that you would sit your driving test. So you register and then you would sit it at a driving test centre. The cycle to register to open up an account starts on the 1st of June. So we'll need to get you organised so that you can do that. And then either you do your admissions test before October, if you're applying to Oxford or Cambridge, or you'll be doing it between then and January if you're applying for some other top universities. Now, there are a few tests. As I said, there's one for law, which is the LNAT, and that's largely a critical thinking test. Then you have the ESAT, which is for engineering and science admissions tests, chemical engineering, vet med, but there are loads. Biochem, lots and lots of universities now that use the ESAT. Then there's the TARA, which is academic reasoning. And this is largely critical thinking. You have to write an essay, but you do need to make sure you're prepped for that. And then the TMUA is a test of maths. And this is really, really tough. You must prepare for these. But let's look specifically about which of the universities that use these tests. Now, this is the course list for 2026. So, for example, you need to make sure that you choose the right modules if you're doing ESAT. But if you're applying for Durham, Imperial, LSE, Cambridge, Warwick, or UCL, you may well have a test. And this is because these universities are struggling to differentiate between students who've been predicted 3As and students who've been predicted 3As, or students who've been predicted multiple A stars and students who've been predicted multiple A stars. They are wanting to see, do you have genuine interest for the subject? So really important, you do need to make sure that you won't have a test, because you will need to sit a test and it will make you more competitive. For Durham, you need it for maths, stats. For Imperial, you need it for aeronautical engineering, civil, design, so that's the ESAT test. But then you've also got it for physics, physics with year abroad, electronic. And then for their computing courses, they set you the maths, the TMUA. Economics, data science as well. Really important, they set it for a lot. So you must make sure you look and register and get organised for that. LSE, London School of Economics and Political Science. Very important. They set the TMUA for all of these. And then you've got Cambridge, where they ask for the ESAT for a lot of different courses: natural science, engineering, chemical engineering, vet med, etc., economics. And Warwick. It is compulsory for these courses. So very, very important. UCL, they use the ESAT for those 2 engineering courses. Now they then use the TARA, the critical thinking test. Now they set the TARA for European social and political studies, international politics, computer science and maths, management science, sociology, social sciences. So very, very important that you make sure you're prepared if you have those. And then they set the maths test, the TMUA, for economics with a year abroad. So very, very important. If you will have an admissions test, it's worth looking up, checking whether you will have a test, and then making sure that you do ask and see if you can get some preparation. We are in the process of looking into whether we should set up some evening lessons across the trust. So if you're interested in preparation sessions for those admissions tests, I'm going to add a form to this email and I'm going to ask which of the tests you might be interested in, and then you can let me know. Nice to chat. Speak soon. Bye.